Hello, everyone. Oh, I don't have a name for this show. What's it called? Maybe we'll talk about that. But anyway, I'm Moonshine, and that's weird because the person I'm talking to is someone I've known for how many years have I known you? Oh,
Um,
damn. Maybe like 13 years?
13 years.
Oh.
13 years. I mean, we've known each other I think we started to become close like a year after. So we've
Okay,
known
yeah.
each other since 2007, and then we got close 2008. So about that.
Yeah. Anton here. Well, now they can guess my
Cool.
age and like how many years it's been because Anton here was my friend in college, and
Yes.
we've been friends ever since.
Hmm.
And he knows my real name
That's more than half our lives, right? That is.
more than half. No,
No, it's
it's
not. I'm
not for.
sorry.
Yeah,
No, it's
I
even
guess
less
I
for
don't
me.
know.
Sorry.
Am I
My
really
math is
hiding
wrong.
my age? I'm not hiding
No,
my
my math
age.
is completely wrong.
Yeah, but your math
I'm
is
off by 2 years.
and I'm not. Yeah, so there. Yeah, I'm not ashamed of my age. It's just I don't want to give too many details.
Yes.
Ugh, whatever. I was just gonna say that this is a little bit funny because you know my name, and I'm introducing myself as Moonshine.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's gonna be difficult to try not to
yeah,
talk to him.
as my my person name.
Yes.
But so yeah, we've been friends for a long time, and in college, you and I used to talk a lot, right?
Yep.
In
I
what
mean, it's not like we
context?
don't talk a lot
In
now.
what context did we talk a lot in college?
We always we were always over a glass or a bucket of beer.
When did we ever just have a glass of beer?
No, there were fine, two glasses. No, there were times we'd have two glasses or two bottles.
Two
That was the
bottles.
minimum. That was the minimum.
Yeah,
We
I
would call it
know.
the sprint.
Yeah, two bottles. But those two bottles actually, they if you put them together, they made a liter.
Yeah, they made one
Yeah.
liter of
So
beer.
that's not a little bit. That's still
It's not. That is
quite a
not.
substantial amount of beer. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's where and I do remember we would talk. We would talk about well, herbs and rosemary and basil, like you were saying a while
Yes.
ago,
Yes.
and yeah, philosophy class and music and
Mm-hmm.
our plans for the org we were part of
Yep. And
and
also the
people.
plans of when we graduated, we would open up a bar
Oh yeah,
with
yeah, with like a secret.
the ground
Oh my
floor. Yeah.
This
Do
was
you
before
remember? Do you know?
speakeasies got popular
Yeah, yeah.
here.
The ground floor would be for the public, and then the upper floor would be for us and our friends and some music.
Yeah, and like members.
Yeah,
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 it would be
yeah.
like a speakeasy where you really needed a password to get to the back.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
that's right.
Uh,
I even had a
it's never
name
too
for it.
late. You did? I forgot what the name was.
The Oh man, it's a Filipino fable. Give me two animals from a fable from the Philippines.
I don't know these.
Pagong at matching.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I wanted to name it like an English pub, but
Right.
Filipino. Yeah. So yeah. So there. That's why I thought that you would be one of the first people I talked to for this podcast, which is
Yes.
still unnamed.
Oh,
Unnamed.
lol.
Sorry. Unnamed is the name of
Unnamed.
a band in college where
And this episode is just gonna be full of references to our
it's all right.
to
I
our
mean,
old college life.
we're still just introducing ourselves.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is
So,
also going to be like therapy time for me.
well, I don't know. That's kind of just a thing that my friends say about me. Unless I say my turn. Can I debrief? I'll debrief. Nah, just kidding. My friends are my friends.
Yes.
Yeah, also it is therapy time for you.
No, it's for the both of us. Therapy time for the both of us.
Yeah.
We're both
Right.
like just unloading on each other. With purpose. Unloading with purpose.
To be recorded and maybe to let other people hear.
Yeah.
So yeah. So this
Right.
is the show, and this is Anton, and this is me.
Hello.
Okay. Well, how are you in the world today?
In the world. I think we've gotten you. It's been, what is it? Been 3 months?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
April,
been three
May.
months.
Yeah, it's been 3 months since this whole lockdown thing started. I think we've gotten used to living like this, but for some reason, the world is just presenting itself to be more horrible than the previous week. Than it was the previous week. Not
Yeah.
necessarily horrible, like
Well,
more challenging.
I
Pretty
think
horrible.
I think it's been pretty horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess is it shock? Am I in a little bit of shock that all of these things are happening in the middle of you
The
know
pandemic.
the pandemic?
Yeah.
I guess I am, honestly, because it's like compounded worry, and there's no way around it. Even just the dilemma of, do I go join or do I stay home?
Same.
The whole, like, do I, the health risk, but the joining. I'm sure a lot of people have been, maybe it's something that's holding people back. But I don't know. I mean, you look at what's happening in the U.S.
Yeah.
Loads of people. But at the same time,
Yeah.
I'm watching and it's like, oh yeah, they're organizing. There's so much, so much compassion. Especially the big ones, the really big ones.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I see the pictures and I'm just like, oh my god, it's a crowd. like, like let's move away from each other. So yeah.
To be perfectly honest, for me, it's like if my main contention for not going out and joining these crowds, if and when there were, was I think it's mainly because of the people I live with, and
Yeah.
I don't want to have to be the one that brings whatever disease back home. Especially I'm living with my father-in-law and my wife, and my father-in-law is 73. So I don't want to be responsible for I don't want to be that one. No, I'm not that I don't want to be that person that puts him on a hospital bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I mean,
if the
being
context were
responsible.
completely different for me, if I was living on my own, or I think if it was just me and my wife, I think I would be willing to get up and join these people, to be perfectly honest. Because I'm not as afraid. Well, of course I don't know because I haven't experienced it, but like I don't feel as afraid of these things as I am carrying that burden
What burden?
of of being responsible for other people in my household as well.
Oh, okay. So
Like if I didn't have that response, I didn't have that
you wouldn't be as
um
afraid.
yes.
Yeah, because you would be taking a risk for yourself, not for other people.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be responsible for myself alone.
But yeah, so that's all happening, and it's like, when does
It's at
it,
least
like, I
free
was
play in the
really,
world.
yeah, I was really like, oh man, when does this end? And I'm talking to my clients, and they're all worried too, in kind of the same way,
Yeah.
and like, I don't I think it is kind of universal at this point that everybody is bothered. Everybody who's not bothered is probably in denial, or is drowning in whatever privilege where they can be um, unaffected. But I don't think anybody is
Yeah.
really unaffected, and that's something that's a, that's even tiring to think about.
Yeah.
The last week was really something else.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's why I recorded that video, and I couldn't even record it on the week it happened. I had to kind of sit with it and just like go through that whole process of try and understand what I really felt about it. Actually, even beyond I really felt about it, because that's something I guess that process for me now is a little faster. It was that, now what do I want to say about it? Like, what do I want to do about it? And how do I want to do it? And what do I do with these feelings and all of that? That's what I wanted to give some time to. So it took me a while, because that's how long it took me. And so that's why I just recorded it this week. Because it was really a difficult week.
And I watched the video even while you were recording it. I could feel it was difficult for you to express whatever you were feeling. You're still currently feeling it. It's not something that
it's
has
still
already
happening.
completely been processed. Yeah, it's still happening.
Yeah.
And it's nuts. And it's both like painful but also uplifting at the same time, in particular to the context of the States.
Yeah.
It's
What do you mean
uplifting
by
because it's uplifting because you're seeing all these people, loads of people. That's like in the statistic that all 50 states are actually finally united. You're seeing some cities, some states who are actually changing their policies because of the protests. You're seeing people who live there, or friends who are actually joining the protests. And that for me is like amazing. Like if I were there, like I'd 100% be with them as well. It's painful because like the fact that there are still people that there are people that they're still going through this kind of stuff despite I don't know how long has it been, centuries, decades of their history. Yeah, it's nuts. Like we were talking about it a while ago. It's like nothing in our experience as Filipinos can ever like come close to what they're feeling. Like even if we've experienced abuse, even if we've experienced corruption and
or years of colonial rule, it's still not.
It won't come close. I don't think it will. Like if you put yourself in that position, you can't. It's really difficult to fathom that.
Yeah,
and like I can't even imagine it.
That's where I think what you're pointing at, what you just talked about there, is really the whole. It's painful and it's heartbreaking, and it's so horrible. It makes you so angry, but at the same time, you look around and it's, you see people are reacting really out of compassion, and it's so that's the heartwarming thing for me. That honestly, when I think about it, it's really one of those things that okay, you're gonna make me cry, because seeing that even here, like it's really it really triggers such an emotional response in me, that the whole mix of care and anger and compassion, it's like it's so powerful. The indignation and compassion is so powerful. I remember because I'm a teacher. Okay, I've said that in other videos before, but there was this one time, a few years ago, 2016. Oh, November 18, 2016. I was in my classroom and I was conducting a test. So when teachers conduct tests, I'm just sitting there on the desk in the front and just going through my phone, waiting for them,
Mm-hmm.
making sure nobody's like peeking over anybody's shoulder. And then as I was going through my phone, I got the news. As I was going through Twitter while my students were taking their test. I saw that the announcement that they had buried Marcos in the libingan ng mga bayani. And it shocked me. Well, honestly, it didn't shock me, but it made,
it pissed us off.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it did. It really pissed us off.
Yeah, but we were expecting it. I was really expecting it. That was something I said immediately the day after elections. I said, this is going to happen. And then that's when it happened. And then it was at that point, right after when the bell rang and they, gave me their test papers. I had another classroom. Oh, sorry, there's no 40-minute limit. I had another classroom. So I was going to the other classroom, and then my students were like, as I was walking, the announcement came out. There was a student speaking over the loudspeaker, saying, inviting people, telling people that, okay, we are.
There's a protest.
There was a rally. We are walking out. We are walking out of our classrooms, and we are going here to protest this. And I was like, all right, but I mean, I did go to the department to drop off my test materials because it was a lot. And then I went out to the street, and there was a point where I was there, and I was looking at all these students. We lined the whole street, and I just started crying. I started tearing up and I started crying because these were all because of just collective energy and the feeling of being there. That, oh God, they're so angry because it's so wrong. But look, we're all coming together in our anger, and that's and we're so angry because, well, at least what I felt, because of the indignation is because of how much this person maltreated all these other people, and that's compassion. That's really you can only have that big a feeling if there's compassion in the picture. Otherwise, you're just mad at the dead guy, and that doesn't make sense. So it only makes sense if there's compassion in it, and that's something I see. That's something I see now, right? There's so much indignation. Well, of course, there's indignation in the part of the people who are affected by the systemic racism, and that to me, that anger is something else. I mean, I'd have to really think about that and talk about it in a different video, because that's coming from suffering and pain, and that's something else. But for everybody else who stands with them, really probably taking from their own experiences of suffering and pain, because that's how we empathize with each other, right? But it's the same thing. It's empathy, it's compassion. It is because you feel so much for what these people are going through, and the you're able to join that and be in your indignation too, because you have compassion, because you see that there really is no difference. This is really unjust. This really should not happen, and that's the only way it's gonna work. That's the only way it makes sense. Otherwise, it is just, I don't even know.
Anger.
I don't even know how to be into to understand it. It's just anger. It's just violence.
Yeah.
It's just what? Maybe that's one thing that will help us understand the people who are looking at this and just saying like, and who can't understand it. Maybe because they're not feeling compassion. Because if
Yeah.
you look at it without understanding that it is coming from compassion, it just looks like, what's the point? Right?
Yeah.
It just looks like people are complaining.
One thing I was thinking, one thing I thought about while I was watching your video a while ago was, whenever I think of hope, it's never, I don't think it was ever based off of my singular being or my own individual thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
things. Like, it's never, whenever I'm hopeful for something, it's never just me when that's thinking that. I'm never
Mm-hmm.
hopeful for something that I'm the only one who's hopeful for it. Right? There's always, hope for me lies in multiple people, groups of people, hundreds of people relying on that same hope. Like, it's never like, if I'm hopeful for something, sure, you can be hopeful for like, oh, I hope I pass this test. Oh, I hope this girl will say yes to me. Sure, there are those things, but when it's in this scale of hope for change, like, you can't be alone. I feel like it's impossible to be
Yeah,
to be
it's
one
impossible to
person.
hope if you're
Hope,
alone in
if you're
that
alone,
context.
yeah, exactly. Like, hope really lies in being with multiple people.
Yeah, and seeing that, right?
Yeah,
And
and
this is
feeling
something
that.
that I remember. I was in a session with one of my clients, and this was early on. Maybe this was just a week, 2 weeks into the quarantine,
Uh-huh.
and I remember really, my client has anxiety. That's why this particular client was in therapy, and so there are moments in therapy where I kind of just like take a chance. Also, we have really good rapport already, so.
Yeah.
But I came, even, and the thing is, even in therapy, I come up with realizations too, okay, as I am discussing things, as I am um, processing with my clients. And at that point, and I remember it so clearly because I've been repeating it to other people ever since. I told this client, in this particular case, okay, your feeling of helplessness is right.
Mm-hmm.
I told her. I told her.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, I told her because I said, because if you only look at your action as an individual in the context of this huge monster of a disease, your action is going to be insignificant and useless because it's pervasive, it's everywhere, it's going to be everywhere and all of that, and so easy to catch. Your one action is going to feel, no wonder you're going to feel helpless and frustrated because it's so big and you're only one
Yeah.
person. So I
Yeah.
say, if you keep thinking about it, that's actually a realistic assessment. But that's why it's so important to remember that you are not just one person
Yeah.
trying to do your thing against this huge ass monster. You're not. You have to remember that there are all these other people, and if all of you try to contribute, actually, it was a particular metaphor. I said, you are a single cell in the face of this huge monster. How will one cell do any action that's significant enough to fight that monster?
Yeah.
But I say, cells make up a body. And, we just hope that we're a little cell in the body of what is hopefully a hero that will eventually slay the monster. But we all have to be cells of that hero. Okay?
Yeah.
If not, And that's the only way we can actually feel hope and kind of be realistic about it, where
Yeah.
it's not actually futile. If all of us actually do our part or come together or realize our wholeness, okay, and us being a part of that whole, that's the only way it'll work. That's the only way.
Yeah.
That's something that'll help you from falling into despair. Because if you're just looking at your own action in the face of this, what's going on in the world, of course you're gonna feel helpless and hopeless, because your one action's not gonna do it. It has to be
Yeah.
everybody's.
Yeah.
So it's good to remember that. So yeah, you're right, I agree. It's great
Yeah.
you're able to feel hope.
And it's not even like, it doesn't even have to be in this kind of scale, because of course everyone's like dealing with their own shit their own way. It's not like, I hope I'm not being insensitive about saying this, pointing this out. Like, it's not, you don't need to be in their situation to have that kind of hope, because there are other people who have their individual problems, right?
Mhm.
They have their own anxieties. Like, I have this friend who, for the past year or more, hasn't been like himself, and like he really doesn't know. Like, there are times where he goes to like really dark places where he feels like, yeah, like, why does he feel this way? He shouldn't have felt this way. He shouldn't be he shouldn't be feeling like, why is he anxious? He's never thought of himself to be that kind of person. So now everything seems like so dark and grim and hopeless for him. Like, he doesn't want to like continue. Like,
Mhm.
there are those people. But then a few days ago, he actually called me up, and now it wasn't even just a message. He called me up like in the morning,
Mhm.
and he was crying, and he was telling me how, like, the way he was crying was different from previous times where he was crying and he didn't know what to do. This one
Mhm.
was like sort of like an elation,
Mhm.
where he was telling me like he finally felt like how happy he was. And the night before, or at least like hours before, early in the morning, he was messaging me where like, he read about this 80-20 rule, um sort of like 20%. I think the 80-20 rule sort of says like 20% effort, 80% fulfillment, something like that. And he related to having like friends, where you only had like a few friends, a few really good friends, but you had a lot of like fulfillment, big returns on those few friends, as opposed to having like lots of like superficial friends,
Mhm.
but like not much. And then he was telling me like, I was part of his 20%, and he was
Mhm.
thanking me the whole time. Like, I was like, that touched me a lot.
Mhm.
But in terms of that, like, I was telling him like, sure, you have issues. Everyone has issues. They have different issues, but they do. But you don't have to. But you have to realize you don't have to deal with these things alone. And like, that's sort of one way. That's another way of putting that. That's another context of like, hope lies on other people as well, not just yourself, because you're really dealing with these things. Not you can't deal with these things alone. That's when you like start to give up. You have to have that much support. You have to be in that support as well, and accept that support,
Yeah.
and realize you're really not alone. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be like a huge scale of like having hundreds of people in the same rally and you start to cry. Hope can lie in a few people as well, and then
Yeah.
that can scale up as well. right? It's really being alone. That loneliness is the grim part of everything. That's really the darkness. That's the black hole. If you really just feel like you're alone, and I have felt that. I have felt that lots of times in multiple situations, right? And then you realize, and then you just go back to you can't deal with these things alone.
Yeah.
You need to cling on to something, to hold on to something, someone, some bunch of people
Yeah. And
that will hold on to you as well. Because there really are people. There will be people who will hold on to you.
yeah, I mean, that makes sense, I mean, I get that. The whole, I guess it's a little, is it the same? Is it the same thing? Is it also drawing on, um, like, connectedness? And how, I don't know if you saw that video, but I was talking about compassion. Like, what is compassion really? I mean, I've been saying the word this whole time. And I said compassion is what you feel when you look at other people and you realize that, oh, we're connected. That's
Yeah.
that's the feeling of compassion. So what you're actually describing is compassion still. Like, the antidote to loneliness is actually compassion.
Yeah.
It's you realizing, it's you when you open up yourself to somebody else and you let someone else in, and you feel with and for that person. It becomes, because, like, the whole being able to depend on someone, to trust in someone, is also, that's something that comes if you feel, I guess, if you feel a connection to them. Trust is a connection. So in that way, it's still kind of mimicking, or maybe it's the same thing, like like it's a fractal. If you know fractals, sorry. Oh, so nerdy. But yeah, you go into it and it's actually the same thing, right? So in the big scale, it's that. In the small scale, in our personal problems and personal lives, problems within ourselves, even, like that needs to be processed. And these are just very, like, I'm just talking in such generic terms, but yeah, everybody goes through this, and it does become so much better if you feel that connectedness, if you have that support system, those few people you can trust. That does give you hope. That's something that can, pull us out of our helpless, hopeless pits.
Yeah.
And I just want to push it even further. That whole, in therapy, I always say this thing where I say, you go to therapy and the goal of therapy is so you don't need therapy anymore. But I really treat the therapy session as, this is like practice. I don't tell all my clients this, but I like to pretend that the therapy room is in the client's brain. We're there and we're talking in their brain. And what my role is to help this person. So it's like training on how you should talk to yourself in your brain, how you process yourself in your brain, in your head. And so it's like practice. We practice for 1 hour a week. And what I hope they do is they take it out of the counseling room and they repeat it. They practice it outside. And the more they practice it, the more they actually start to do the process of therapy for themselves in their head.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, actually, the skill is to look at themselves and process themselves the same way other people, friends, or in that case, the therapist, does. So it's still compassion. It's still that connectedness. It's still the whole. It's still about connection. but we learn to do that with ourselves. At least that's the hope that I have in therapy. That's also what I see. The point where I hardly say anything at all to my client, he or she just sits there in front of me and then they say, it's like they're just processing themselves in front of me. That's my signal that, I think we're good. Just come back when you need to, when you want to. But I guess that's self-compassion, the ability to do that, to really connect with, understand, and care about yourself in that way. That's self-compassion. And that is something that I have really seen that's pulled people also out of loneliness, out of helplessness, out of hopelessness. That to being able to look at themselves and care. And that sounds so simple, but it's not. And again and again, to say it is simple, again and again, I see it's not. So many people have such a hard time caring for themselves. And so maybe, and that's something that also brings us to hopelessness.
Yeah. I guess that's why, like, for me, like, one reason why it's still difficult for me. Like, we've had a few sessions, right? You and me. But, like, it's not like I've had, like you said, I haven't had practice with it.
Yeah.
I still rely on, like, having some external factors.
Yeah. And that's all right. That's all right. That's really how it is, right? You practice it. Like, I literally tell my clients, this is something, and I like doing this because it's a little funny to me. I mean, I enjoy it. I tell my clients sometimes, okay, I know this is gonna make you uncomfortable. I know you're gonna cringe, whatever you're gonna say, it's fake news, all of that. But I want you to write all the positive things that people have told you about yourself that you don't believe. Okay? They will write it down. And then I say, your homework is to tell yourself that in first person. And I will say, I don't know, I don't, and not just in your head, okay? You have to verbalize it.
Like verbalize,
Yeah, or you have to write it down. If saying it, with your mouth, you can't do it, it's too hard, write it down. I want it that you can see it with your eyes and it is not just in your head. And every time, without fail, it's such a powerful exercise. And then they will say, like, it feels so weird or so wrong, or they reject it automatically. There's a critical voice in their head saying you're lying, that's not true. But I keep it, it's just like, no, it's okay. It depends how close I am. Like, it depends on our rapport. But sometimes I say, I don't care if it makes you uncomfortable. I know it will make you uncomfortable, and that's exactly why I'm asking you to do it. Because I'm asking you to start talking back to that voice in your head saying it's not. And you can only learn that if you practice it. That's why I ask you to really say it. And that's practice.
I am one of those who will cringe. But that's definitely me.
I do remember. I think I've done that to you. Not exactly like that, but I've made you say something out loud. It's like, can you say that aloud? Can you say it again?
Yeah. We have done that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there.
It's just people like me, like, the judge, the critic will always just pop up. It's really difficult to, like, have that critic just sit down and shut up. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard really to have that critic shut up.
But the only way that any other voice will be louder than that critic is if you practice that voice, right? So that's what I say to everyone, my friends, my clients, you, that there's no hurry to this, right? You will learn at your own pace, and as long as you keep doing it and doing it and doing it, that's it.
Yeah.
Because if you try to push yourself too, that critic is just gonna get louder, and this whole process of trying to help yourself actually doesn't work. So, idea of giving yourself time, giving yourself, just some kindness and some gentleness as you relearn, because that's actually what you're trying to learn. You're trying to give yourself compassion. So we may as well start at being like, it's all right, you're learning, you're practicing. Yeah, the critic's very loud, the judge very loud, but it's okay, you're trying, you're doing your best.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess one thing to keep in mind is, if you're having that kind of difficulty, is it's similar to any sort of skill that you're trying to get better at. Like, for example, for me, like I'm a sound engineer by profession, right? It started out as a hobby, and like just mixing songs of a band or of a few friends, right? And then whenever I did something, I've been doing this for what has been 8. Wow, it's been 8 years, 9 years, roughly more. And until this day, there's always gonna be a critic. But as you said, it's practice, and it's something that you really learn by just repetition, and keep by repetition, and just pushing forward. So early in my career, the critic would just come up all the time, like, oh, you suck at this, you should just find something else to do. But like you said, it's practice. It's something that you have to keep doing, and then you will build that confidence that you will be able to tell yourself these things without cringing,
Yeah.
without saying, without fail, that you tell yourself like, oh, you're not that horrible. And it's, at first it'll be cringy, but you have to keep doing
Even
it.
even what you just said, you're not that horrible. I would
Yeah,
be
yeah,
like,
that,
what
even
do
that's
you
like, okay,
mean you're
that's
not that horrible?
you're better than that.
Yeah, you're good.
Like I
You,
said, I need
yeah, yeah.
practice.
I mean, this
I
is
need practice
yeah.
pushing my. But yeah, going back to like my example, like right now, whenever I work on like stuff, it's different now. It's like whenever I work on, before, earlier in my career, like I would work on stuff. It's like, oh, this sucks so much. Why am I doing this? Now when I'm doing something and it sounds great, it's like, oh, I'm so good at what I'm doing. And I
Yeah.
tell my, yeah, and I tell my wife, I just, after a day's work, I'd lie down like, oh, that was really good. I'm so good at this. I'm great at what I'm doing. So yeah, you really have to keep working on whatever you're doing, and that goes for the same as like, okay, yeah. Now I'm telling myself that, Pia.
Okay.
Sorry. Now I'm telling myself.
It's okay. We will bleep it. We'll
We'll
bleep it.
believe. Now I'm telling myself that, Moonshine. It's like, I yeah, you need to practice being nice to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is me, Anton, telling myself in real time I need to be nice to myself when it comes to these things. I am
Yeah.
not. I'm not always nice to myself.
Right.
But yeah,
I
that's,
mean, me
hope
too.
doesn't have to rely on. It does rely on other people, but it's also putting those people as yourself, or yourself and those as those people.
Yeah. And the thing is, you know what? That's to me, that's the easiest entryway to a person learning to be kinder to themselves.
Yeah.
It's really like, think about this person who is kind to you. Think about this
Yeah.
person who cares about you. What does this person say about you? How does this person treat you? How do
Yeah.
you feel when you're around this person? And that becomes kind of this model that we can try to imitate, right?
Yeah.
We learn, and I really, this is something that I do in therapy too, and again with my friends. Sometimes, for example, if it's your mom or something, like for my client, like someone who's kind to you, my mom, what does she say? She says that I am brave and I am courageous, but like I can't a person can have a hard time saying that to themselves. But I'm like, okay, so your mom says this, right? Sometimes I ask them, so is your mom a liar? Is your mom stupid? I know it's like exaggerated, but it
Yeah.
really, it's something that helps drive home the point. It's like, if this person you care about and trust says this about you, why don't you trust it? Okay, and that's
Yeah.
starting. That's an entry point. With my friends, I'm like, I say this about you. Am I a liar? Am I you're calling me stupid? No, you trust me. This is what I see. You can trust my judgment.
Oh
and
my
and
God.
that's
This
like
is
an
going back to this is
to
going back to our sessions before.
yeah, because this is really how I, well, that's my style, I guess.
Yeah.
That's how I do it. That's the point. And then that's what gets them to have some motivation to at least try to believe it, to at least try to say it to themselves. And then once they start doing
Yeah.
that, okay, um yeah, they start practicing, and suddenly it just trickles in, and then they start to feel it more and all of that.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that's a good entry point. But it's really important that it becomes something you eventually are able to give yourself, because if not, if you keep on depending on other people to give you that validation, then that could also kind of like be very imbalanced, right?
Mm.
So that's why the imbibing it, that's why I really like to make people say it. Say it, the first person, say it.
Yeah.
Because like, to me, that's extremely important too. But yeah, I mean, I also, a few weeks ago, is it a few weeks ago or a few months ago, or something like that, I looked at my old blog.
You
I
had a
opened an
blog?
old Tumblr. I had an old personal
You had
Tumblr.
a Tumblr, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's where 8-bit fiction started. But I looked at
Right.
my personal one, and I saw that I actually started this private one. It was really just for me, and the very first entry, sorry, is just, I've not told anyone this. I mean,
I'm honored.
I've told maybe like 2 people. Uh, but yeah, the very first entry was something like, you know what? I am not going to do this anymore. I said, I am so tired of looking at myself and feeling uh, bad about myself and not being able to compliment myself. Like I really said, like I wrote that down. I'm so tired of not being happy with myself, blah, 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 blah. And I said, from now on, I am going to own it. And then I posted a picture of myself. And I was just like, oh, wow, oh my God. I mean, I was already taking my MA in psych at the time. So,
Right.
but this was quite a few years back. I mean, but yeah, like, so I started there. I started writing to myself and telling myself, stop doing that, right? Stop being so critical. Like, tell yourself you're pretty. and like, you have nice hair, whatever, right? Say it. Go ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. And there were quite a few posts in it. But after a little bit, I stopped. Although
Yeah.
I do know, I think the point where I stopped was where I started posting things in public on Instagram. That actually served the same purpose. It was like a log of, kind of like affirmations.
Yeah.
And that's my practice. I I did get to this point where this is how I talk to my clients, because I learned that. Yes, probably through some psych theory and some approach or another, but I did it to myself, and that's how I know that, hey, yeah, with practice over time you can get to a point where you can do that. You can really tell yourself, I love myself. I do
Yeah.
that. you know it's like, it's okay. So I said my own words, okay. It's okay, sometimes it's like, just holding yourself and telling yourself it's okay. You're feeling hopeless right now, but It's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it right now. Right now, you are here and you're safe and you're breathing and you still have some water in your fridge. Sorry, I was gonna say food, but I don't have food right now. But yeah, right, things like that, and it's just learning to self-soothe, right, and to compliment yourself and to like comfort yourself is so important. And I think
and even that takes practice as well.
yeah,
Like
definitely.
having the critic just sit down and having to just talk to yourself and tell yourself that it's okay. A
Yeah,
lot of people, and myself included, have like really have that difficulty of like telling yourself that it's okay,
hmm.
because the critic's just right there, right on your shoulder, right at your ears, like telling yourself like you're wrong, what you did was wrong. It that takes practice to just shut that thing up,
Yeah,
and to
actually what I
tell
like,
it takes some strength,
yeah,
some inner
what
strength
I
to really.
like what I like to do, and this is something I learned in while doing therapy, is that usually the critic, because this something common among my clients with anxiety, they all tell me, what if I get too soft on myself? Like, what if it's too much? What if I start spoiling myself? And I'm like, I mean, if I'm close enough to them, I'll tell them, do you even know what that feels like? And they're like, no. And I'm like, so I don't know. I guess when we get there, you'll stop. No, but basically, that's a fear. It's like there's a
Yeah,
protectiveness. Like they try to protect this strong internal critic, and you're not the first person who has labeled that voice a judge. Like I've heard that from
yeah,
other people before. So what I say is that perhaps we can acknowledge that there is a purpose to that voice, that critical voice. It's not
yeah,
just something that's, it's not evil. It's not, um, I'm just saying that right now it's not helpful to you.
yeah,
So maybe over time also, and this, I've seen this happen in my clients. What seems to happen is that over time, the more they practice compassion, the more they practice the kindness to self, the critical voice changes. I don't know,
yeah,
through osmosis or something. But it changes and it turns into something that is just more realistic. Yeah,
yeah,
maybe it gets softened by the kindness that we're trying to cultivate. But instead of being an irrational, automatic critic, it turns into like a check, you know?
hmm,
You need that inner voice to check if you're getting too sloppy, right?
yeah,
If you're starting to like, yeah, I think the lack of discipline now is enough. I think you gotta get your stuff together now. You know, that is still that voice. I mean, what happens is it softens into that voice that does keep, that does help keep us in check,
yeah,
but it's no longer just harsh and hurtful.
yeah,
So maybe that's something to hope for, actually, that maybe one day that critical voice in your head is going to soften. The more you practice kindness and practice softening towards yourself, um, maybe it'll generalize and it'll
yeah.
affect the other parts of you, and then it'll just balance out.
What I was thinking about just now, and this might circle back to like our initial conversation about like what's happening to the world, is I feel like a big thing about our critics, about our judges in our head,
Mm-hmm.
is what contributes to that voice, to how we criticize ourselves, and we criticize, and which in turn also criticizes other people, is how we perceive the world, or how the world is shown towards us in terms of like mass media or stereotypes or movies or whatever, and how you criticize yourself because this is what you think you should be. You should be strong. You should be tough. You should be. Um, you can't be emotional. You can't be. You shouldn't be soft. You can't. You shouldn't be kind. You have to be a strong, independent person, and you can't rely on other people. It's like that's how the critic talks to me. That's you can't. You need to be a self-made person. You need to be um, strong for yourself and not rely on others. You need to treat these people a certain way because that's what the world says. And that's a big, and being able to change that critic's voice into a more kind voice to yourself and to other people, because I noticed like I criticize myself the way I would criticize other people, which is based off of what I think of what I have been taught what the world was.
Yeah, or should be.
Or should be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas today we're trying to change that in
Yeah.
our time right now as people living in 2020.
Right, exactly.
But,
all of
yeah.
these things that are happening is basically us saying, wait, this is not how the
This is,
world should
yeah,
be.
exactly. This is all wrong.
Yeah.
Well, not all wrong, but like a lot of this is wrong and we need to change it.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for even your inner critic to
To
move
change.
past
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. What about the world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what will they think of me if I change this?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So it's that it has a lot to do with like trying to like I just keep remembering this the Keanu Reeves quote where he says, "I don't want to be part of the world where kindness is seen as a weakness." And man, we have lived through that where kindness is seen as a weakness, right? Being soft is a weakness. And so you tell yourself that and you show that to other people, and that's just how it goes. And that sucks.
Yeah.
Right? So you keep telling yourself that if you're kind to yourself, oh, you're weak, you're soft, you're
Yeah. And that's such a
and that's nuts.
common thing. I hear that all the time.
Yeah. And that's especially me as a guy.
Yeah.
Like who like, oh, why are you crying? You're a guy. Man up. That kind of shit.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And so you know this whole conversation and this whole change we're all trying to do in ourselves to learn a little kindness and a little compassion towards ourselves is actually it's the same as this big change that we're trying to do in the world, which is we're saying that no, you can't do that to people. You can't treat people this way. This is wrong. But I mean, I keep going back to the importance of kindness, to the importance of compassion, because you know, if it does work that way, if what we're doing right now in the world is some kind of, you know, planetary therapy, okay, of you know, this part of the world's consciousness is trying to talk to that part of the world's consciousness, the critic, you know, and this one saying, no, we gotta be kinder, and this one saying, no, this is how the world should be, you know, whatever, all of that. Then if what works in our inner world is to practice kindness, right, is to always go to you know, connectedness and you know, gentleness and compassion, then maybe I keep drawing on that because maybe that's what I think is so important. And it's not that I don't see it. It's just sometimes I'm scared that that people's anger will, dominate so much that there won't be enough space for compassion and gentleness and kindness. When, when to me, actually, what makes, if you add that to the picture, it makes it all the more powerful and right, And again, if that's what works for our personal consciousnesses, then if that is a reflection of this or this is a reflection of that, maybe that tells us about what we need to put out there to truly change this. And also, again, the importance of repetition and practice. It takes people years to, convert that critical voice into, something else, to have that critical voice evolve and transition into something more nurturing, something that's still trying to keep you in check, but something that's realistic and constructive even. So I don't know, maybe to me that makes it a little bit, that does help me with my feelings of hopelessness and frustration, because I'm like, yeah, it's true that this, what we are trying to go for and what we're trying to change right now is something that we have been trying to do for years and years and years, even generations. But maybe we also have to remember that, look, this is a planet. This is a humanity. This is humanity that we're trying to change now. So if it takes that much time for you to deal with yourself, then okay, maybe we gotta give time for the world and our role in it, to deal with all of this. But we have to play a part in it because we have to practice. If we don't play a part in it, then we don't do it, then there's no practice and we'll never change. Right? So to me, that's encouraging. Like, all right, like, we just gotta keep on doing this, much like when I tell my clients, if you fail, if you're critical to yourself one day, you know what, so what, you slipped up, you had a bad critical day, does that, just keep trying the next day, because the point is just to keep trying, practice until it's something that comes natural to you. Right? So yeah, maybe that's what we gotta do in the world. We just gotta keep repeating it and not judge it and repeat it. Let's just try again, I'm saying that, but I'm still having a hard time.
No, for sure.
I still feel the frustration, but it is an encouraging thought that I'm glad we hit on today.
Same.
All right.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I went to that as well. Like that's gonna help me. It's gonna help me a lot.
That's
personally.
Nice. All right.
Because the hope with other people, that's the larger amount of hope. We got that. You and me and our circles, we got that. Hope within yourself. That's a bigger thing that you think it's smaller, but no. That's something I can work on and latch on to.
All right. Wow, we did it. We had a coherent conversation.
Oh my God.
I don't know. We're going to listen back on this. We're going to see if it's coherent. But, I'm just trying to review in my head. I was like, wow, that's like we did a pretty good, we had a pretty good structure going on there. It's like a good essay.
Yeah, we did.
Like, I could write an essay on this, this conversation.
Thanks for having me. Hope let's see if I can come back.
free therapy.
Free therapy. I mean, it's for both of us.
Yeah.
And for the person recording.
And the people listening, hopefully.
And the people.
I think we have some things here that we can release. Oh God.
Drink your tea. Drink your tea.
Okay. There. So, all right.
That was great.
Yeah, that was fun. I'll keep doing this.
Yeah.
I'll invite you again. Maybe
Yeah.
next week.
Sure.
I haven't thought of who to invite next, and so it's like, oh, okay.
Sure.
Or I don't know, maybe something else will happen in the world, and it'll be a continuation of this conversation.
I just hope it's something good. Please
Well,
be something good.
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
I mean, I did. That's something I found so important to say in that video I just did on hopelessness. It's this.
Yeah.
Truth is, we will get disappointed. We will continue being frustrated.
Yep.
There will be all these things. That's why we gotta learn to deal with the hopelessness, because that's the only way we can just continue practicing and changing.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Well.
All right.
Thank you, Anton, for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Moonshine.
They're very fresh new thing I'm trying to do. Anyway, but yeah, that was fun. I think we hit on a lot of hard things, but yeah, important things
for both you and me, and for everyone else.
Yeah. So thank you to you. I guess at this point, thank you to everybody who's listening, who will be listening to this in the future. If you have any thoughts about anything we talked about, as usual, you can probably leave comments on this wherever we post this, or you can email me letters@8bitfiction.com. You can tweet us, the usual. Go to 8bitfiction.com, our forum. We'll probably put this in the forum so we can continue the conversation there if anybody's interested. So that's it. Oh, we didn't get to talk about what to name this, but it's okay.
Next time.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. All right. That's it for today. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Are we actually going to end this call, or
and
are we going to keep talking?
We can talk a bit. Do you want to keep talking? I'm okay.
It's okay. We'll stop recording now.
Yeah, let's stop recording. All right.